Hey guys, Alex here from Homeschool of Bellow. On today's video, I'm going to show you how to co-bind your own workbook. If you're interested to see how you can go from a workbook like this one to this, stay tuned. One of the first things you do want to do is start tearing up your book. And by tearing up, I know some people are probably going to cringe at this, but it's the only way to do it. The best way to do it, and I will tell you, is if you open up the cover, you're going to have a couple pages that go with the cover. So for instance, when I pull it, I see that all these pages kind of want to go with the cover. So what I usually do is that is my starting point. So after I start to kind of pull these little pages apart, and I don't worry too much about the spine of the book, that's going to get torn off anyway and cut off. So once I get that cover with those little pages, usually it's 2 to 3 pages that go with the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. And from there, that's actually going to make it a lot easier to start peeling off the pages. Now I go about 5 to 7 pages at a time and slightly start peeling off that glue. So try to keep the pages in order. And like I said, by peeling off that spine, it makes it easier for you to be able to peel off those pages quite easily. So you're just gonna keep repeating this step. As you go into the center of the book, you should actually be able to peel off more pages at a time. But I always say do this with caution because sometimes the pages can tear. So you still wanna do it with a lot of caution. Okay, so once we start getting to the end, now you're gonna start seeing the spine from the back side start to come undone. You're gonna have a big slab of glue. That is something that you can just kind of peel off. Again, you wanna be somewhat gentle with that. You don't wanna tear any of the pages. This is something we could easily slice off with the paper cutter, so I'm not gonna worry too much about that. This is a workbook that actually comes with answer sheets on the background, in the back. This is where you can decide if you want to add these pages or not. You have the back cover, and the back cover is also going to be attached to usually 1 or 2 pages. In this instance, it's a little achievement award, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that intact, set that aside. So some of these pages here are going to be some answer sheets. I'm not going to worry too much about these answer sheets. It does have one of the sight word games here, so I might just go ahead and keep that page. But for the most part, these pages are going to be something I really don't need, so I'm not going to worry too much about these. So now you're going to have a completely unbound book. Now this is where your paper cutter comes into play. Now you do want to be very careful when you slice the pages. You want to slice very little. I usually just do about 1 centimeter just to kind of get that little rough edges off because they are going to be rough. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I just try to slice as little as possible, but I do want a very nice clean edge. So this is the paper cutter that I have. I've had this for years. I'm not quite sure where, I think it was from Walmart. I'm not sure. It's actually double-sided, but any paper cutter will really work. I like the fact that this one has the big slicer. So I'm first going to start with the cover. I try to get as close as I can to the actual edge of where the spine begins. Just like that. So you're just wanting to get a lot of that roughness out of the way. Now, as far as the pages, some of the pages are going to be connected. If your paper slicer doesn't slice that many pages at once, that's when you want to start separating, which is quite easy to separate. You can just kind of peel them apart. My paper slicer should be able to handle that little stack. Just like that. So you're basically going to repeat this process with all of these pages here. All right, so now we got to the back cover. You want to do the same thing. You want to just kind of come just a little bit over the spine. All right, and there you have it. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is all the pages are left intact. I'm going to just kind of make sure that all the pages are facing the correct direction and I didn't mess anything up. Nothing's upside down or backwards. Okay. All right, so now we have a completely nice and clean edged workbook. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take it to my comb binder and figure out what size I'm gonna want as far as the margin, how far in I'm gonna want the holes, and we're gonna go ahead and comb bind it. Usually what I do, because it does have different sizes for papers, and I'm not gonna go too much into this. Like I said, you guys can watch my comb binding video. I'm gonna just kind of size it up and figure out where exactly I'm gonna need for it to go. This is a little paper, it's just a little dial to tell you what kind of size paper you're gonna stick in here. Obviously this is pretty big. Actually, this is, I think, bigger than an 8.5 by 11. It might be a little slightly larger. So I'm not gonna worry too much about that. It seems like if I leave it all the way over to the end, it should fit perfectly. What I'm gonna do, because I do have some of these pages left over that I'm not gonna add into the workbook, I'm gonna use one of these pages as my guide to see how the holes are gonna look and how far in I'm gonna want them from the edge. I'm gonna go ahead and test it out on this sheet of paper. I always like to punch it one time before I even get started to see if there's any scraps or trash stuck in there. I'm gonna go ahead and push it in. And that looks great to me. That looks like it's far away enough from the border or from the margin. So that looks good. So I'm gonna stick with that. All right, so I'm gonna do the cover by itself. Remember, the cover does have a couple pages attached to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick that in. I'm gonna make sure that it's pressed all the way to the back. And there's the cover page. My comb binding machine doesn't take as many papers as maybe an industrial one. So I do have to do 4 to 5 pages at a time. So I'm gonna go ahead and repeat this step for the whole entire workbook. All right, so once you hole punch your workbook, you want to go ahead and stack it. You want to make sure that all those holes are aligned and you can see right through them. There's nothing that you missed. Okay, now to add the spine. So I had already picked out a spine that I thought was gonna fit perfectly. I'm gonna go ahead and stick it inside of the little lever up here. Pull the lever backwards. That's what opens it up. You want to stick the workbook in facing down. So for instance, I am going to try to, being that all of my holes are aligned, I'm going to go ahead and try to stick the whole entire workbook in one little swift motion, in and down, and then just pull the lever up, and that closes up your workbook. And we have a little comb bound workbook. So now I know that she's going to be able to easily work from this book. It opens up nice and flat, make it easy for her little hands to get in here and work on the backside pages, and we are done. And that is how easy it is to comb bind your own workbooks.